Hello everyone, myself Sushmita, and for my internship I have done two projects so far, and first one is with Professor Fayu and another one with Dr. Mustafa. For the first project, I have done topic modeling of COVID-19 tweets, and I have conducted sentiment and emotional analysis of the topics. Um, just to start the introduction, so everybody know what is COVID, and we are just in the middle of this pandemic. So it is first identified in December 29 in Wuhan, China, and it actually started as an endemic and slowly, gradually progressed to epidemic and then pandemic, and finally WHO has declared it as pandemic in March 2020. And initially it's called as SARS-CoV-2 virus because it presented as a severe acute respiratory syndrome. And after that, by February 11th, WHO has coined the name COVID-19. So everybody had impacted by COVID in several ways. By as per yesterday evening 4:30 p.m., there are like 49.5 million confirmed cases of COVID and 1.2 million of deaths so far. And it has like various effects. Either individually, people are affected psychologically or physiologically, economically, politically. There are many ways. So I think it's a very important topic to discuss about the COVID-19. So objective of my project is to do sentiment analysis of the information posted on social media platform about the COVID-19 pandemic. Yeah. So my research questions are what has been posted and what is shared among the public in the social media platform, and what are the people's interests and perceptions about this pandemic, and at the same time, what are the strategies to use to prevent the spread of fake news or misinformation about this COVID-19 pandemic in social media platform. So first one, when we're talking about sentiment and emotion analysis, so why we are taking this approach, because we wanted to get a wider approach of public's opinion in a very short time, and by this we can capture the opinions of wider public and we can gather more data. So for this whole project, I have used Python, and I used Twitter as my social media platform because Twitter is one of the most widely used social media for people to post their public interest. And that's the reason I have chosen Twitter. And I have accessed Twitter API and used Get All Tweets Free package from Python to collect all the data from Jan 2020 to July 29th. And I have collected more than 200,000 tweets. And you can see the list of all the keywords that I have used to collect the tweets related to COVID-19. So before jumping in, this is the mental model or the workflow of all the things that I have done in my project so far. So I have collected the data, I have cleaned it, I have processed it and did the topic modeling and extracted the topics and labeled it manually. And after I did sentiment and emotional analysis. So it started with I have taken 222,000 tweets, and then I have removed the duplicates based on the same username and the same tweet text, and I'm left with 216,000 tweets. And after that, I removed some irrelevant tweets which are not so related to COVID-19, and I'm left with 209,000 tweets. And after that, most of the people try to post emojis or links or some kind of symbols while putting tweets. So I try to remove all of them because it doesn't have any credibility to my data. I removed them. And after that, once the data is clean, I did the pre-processing like tokenization, removing stop words and lemmatization. So for the topic modeling, once the data is cleaned, I have applied LDA method. It's a unsupervised learning. And then I have adapted Bag of Words algorithm to extract the topics. So far, I have 19 unique topics in the whole data, and I have categorized them into three themes. As you can see, there are three themes: China, and next one is effects of COVID-19 on people, and other one is global effects of COVID-19. So in the China, the topics are mostly about the origin of the virus and also about the outbreak and the initial symptomatic presentation as pneumonia. And on the effects of COVID-19 on people, it's like individually effects on the people like travel restrictions, healthcare workers, schools, stay at home, employment, parenting, quarantine, testing, protests. And when it comes to the global effects, it's like internationally related issues related to COVID-19, like lockdown, economy, global concerns, politics, USA COVID response, pandemic declaration, transmission, and statistics. And here you can see the graphical representation of all the tweets per each topic. So the highest one goes to the COVID-19 statistics. So most people tweeted about the statistics related to COVID, and the least topic is the parenting. This is one of the wonderful visualization in the form of word clouds to understand quickly, get a gist of what the people are thinking about the COVID-19. So starting with the Jan, you can see the size of the word represents the frequency at which the word is repeated in the tweets. And the highest number are like Wuhan, China, coronavirus, and pneumonia. You can see there is no COVID-19 because the COVID-19 term is actually coined in February. So you can see there is no COVID-19 during January. And moving on to February, you can see COVID-19 emerging, and there is also like a cruise ship in Japan. So I think many of you remember during the February, there is like a topic running, the spreading of COVID-19 to China, and at the same time, people traveling in a cruise ship got infected and spreading the virus. And moving to March, again, the people there you can see the word called work. So most of you remember the COVID-19 has spread rampantly during the March. I think maybe in the spring break to our university, and that's the time like everybody are confused about they have to go back to work or they have to stay at home, and people started to worry about their work. And in April, again about the work, hospital, and COVID-19. Maybe in April, most of the health workers, there is like a protest happening. The people are protesting that they don't have enough resources to handle the patients, talking about the hospitals all the time. So that's the one. And in by May, there is again the work, COVID-19, and also the death number. So people are starting to track about the statistics. Either it may be the death number, all the cases affected. That's the one. And by the June, again there is a protest. So I think most of them remember, like it's recently happened. The people are protesting not to wear masks, and they wanted to just freely go away. And by July, you can see there is again the wear mask thing is coming up. Like people wanted like educating everybody, just please wear mask while going outside and so and so. And I think this is like wonderful transition of what people are thinking over the time. And we have got all the topics so far. And finally, I have done sentiment analysis using TextBlog. And based on the polarity score, I have classified the tweets into three classes: positive, negative, and neutral. If it's a score is 0, it's neutral; less than 1 is negative; and more than 1 is positive. So you can see here, there's a graph. The gray one is a positive one. So I have actually represented based on the tweets percentage instead of the number of tweets, because some topics have the higher number of tweets rather than the rest of the topics. So I represented in the percentage form, which is like more reliable. So regarding positive, parenting topic has the most highest positive tweets about that. Maybe because the actually people are enjoying staying at home and spending time with their family, because in the usual day they have to go and work. And when it comes to neutral, the travel restrictions are the neutral topic. It has nothing. And when coming to negative, again, it's the parenting. Maybe people are again talking about staying at home, like taking care of the children, but they have no help because they have to manage the work and kids at the same time, staying at home with no daycare centers. And the next one is the economy, which is really understandable because people are very concerned about the share market, the economy is falling, and also they are worried about if their jobs are going to stay or not. And next, so far with the sentiment analysis, we didn't understand like what's really happening. Like it's like positive, neutral, and negative, but we didn't understand what's really underneath the people's emotion. So we further classified it into emotional classification into 8 classes, starting from fear, trust, anger, anticipation, surprise, sadness, disgust, and joy. So these are the 8 classes. I have used NRC Lex package with the Python. And here, first one I have used, this table shows what is the most represented topic for the particular emotion. So when first one is the anger. When it comes to the anger, lockdown, when people are posting something related to lockdown, the most expressed emotion is anger. So people are really angry when they're talking about lockdown because they don't want to stay at home, they want to go work outside. And next one is economy. The emotion is the anticipation. So it is really understandable because people are always anticipating what's happening to the economy, are the share market falling or rising, or we are going to lose our jobs, is the recession hitting. That's the one. Next one is disgust, so outbreak or pneumonia. So people have like very negative vibes towards China. It's like xenophobia developer towards them. And origin, so people fear the most when talking about the origin, like pandemic is going to break and it's going to spread, it's killing a lot of people. And about the parenting, again, joy. Next one, lockdown. Again, it is sadness because people are angry and sad at the same time sitting at home. And global concern, there is a surprise. And at the stay at home, there is trust. Maybe people are trusting that they can stay at home and so that the virus don't infect them and they can be healthy. And this is another representation. So I have now taken it in an opposite way. This shows what is the highest emotion and lowest emotion for each topic. So if you can see the unanimously the highest emotion for all the topics is fear. It's the highest emotion. And when it comes to the lowest emotion, just by looking at it, you can see surprise, joy. These are the positive emotions usually people have, and they are the lowest emotions for these topics. So it's really justifiable because people are not at all happy when talking about the pandemic. And this is a graphical representation of what I have just shown in the table. Just by vaguely looking at it, you can say the highest color is the yellow, and you can see the emotion is the fear. And some of the colors like gray, blue, green, they are like leastly expressed, and they are like sadness, surprise, disgust, etc. Okay, so there is a professor called Robert Plutchik who have developed this wheel of dyads. It's an emotional wheel called, it is nothing but it represents the 8 main emotions, primary emotions, which I have just talked about. And it links with 3 layers. So you can see there is an outer layer with pride, hope, guilt, etc. And this is the outer layer when it moving towards the core, like with the dominance, anxiety, delight, the intensity increases, the emotion intensity increases. So it helps to understand what is beneath a person's emotion that made the person to react in a certain way. If a person is tweeting on a particular topic, we are trying to capture whether it's anticipation, joy, trust, etc. But there is an underlying emotion what made the people to tweet in a certain way. So this helps to understand that. Yeah, for example, I just took like a disgust emotion because we have seen disgust is the most expressed for outbreak topic. So when it's linked to the emotions which are next to it, like anger and sadness. So how this work is the emotions which are linked, like sitting next to each other, are closely linked, and which is opposite to it is the one which is exactly opposite to it. Like joy is opposite to sadness, and disgust is opposite to trust. So that's how it works. And you can see disgust has anger and sadness, and the core emotions are pessimism and outrage. And if you link this together, it can be completely linked to the real world scenario where the people are having xenophobia towards the Chinese people, and they lack trust in them, which is the opposite emotion. And that's how we have to read this wheel. And so far, we have discussed about what are the content that has been posted and shared among the public. At the same time, what are the people's interests and perceptions. And now it's important to talk about fake news, and we have to prevent it from spreading it. So before talking about the strategies, it's important to understand how a fake news works and why it is important. So this is a chart where it's a number of mentions per topic. Mentions are nothing but like the millennial term called tagging. So people tag in their tweets or posts when somebody from their friends or family or followers, they want them to look at that post. So the highest is for the COVID-19 statistics, which is at the bottom. So people are tagging their friends or family most for the COVID-19 statistics, which means the people want them to look at that particular topic regularly. So just imagine if they are tagging those persons in some unreliable resources. So if it's not like a WH or CDC, it's something like a fake website somebody created, which has like absurd numbers, which doesn't make any sense. If people are not educated on that, they just believe that and started to get panic and anxiety. And it's really important to prevent the chaos even in the social media. And next one is the average of favorites and retweets. So favorites are nothing but people like the post, something like that. And the other one is retweets, is sharing the post. So retweeting is nothing but if I'm sharing a retweeting a post, I'm making all my followers look at the same post. I'm just spreading the news. And favorites is like I'm liking it. So if you can see, the highest retweet is for the quarantine, next for the schools. So it is understandable, like people are wanting people, the rest of them to stay at home if they feel they're symptomatic to COVID. And also the next one is the schools. So when the time the COVID emerged, it is the schooling time, like the universities are open, everything is happening. So people are just talking about the schools, like if it's open or not, they have to go back to the university or not. And when coming to the favorites, the quarantine is also the highest topic. The people are liking about it. Just stay at home if you are symptomatic like that. Finally, misinformation. So misinformation is nothing but like a false or inaccurate information which is like deliberately made to deceive the people. And on a fact, people engagement with this misinformation is gradually increasing day by day. And as I said, it just leads to confusion and anxiety, and sometimes it just politicizes the situation. Social media. So social media is one of the most powerful millennial tool. So everybody now have a social media account, either it may be a Twitter, Facebook, Instagram, etc. They like to post content, either they create it or share it, whatever it is. They want their opinion to be heard by the public, and this platform has given a immense opportunity for them to share their opinion. But when we have to think, if we are posting something or reading something in the social media, we just have to think one information, like, is the content credible? We have to think about it. So I just want to highlight some of the credible sources about the COVID-19 information where we can found like CDC, WHO, NIH, and state departments of health, etc. So when talking about the strategies to prevent this misinformation, there are like two most important points. First, it's not always the public health officials or the higher officials in the politics or the lawmaking thing people. They are not always held responsible for preventing the spread of fake news, because if we talk about the stakeholders, majority of the stakeholders are the people, because they are like wide population when coming to the officials. So people hold a major responsibility in spreading this and preventing the spread of this information. They have to, when somebody is entering the social media, they have to understand how to identify it, how to prevent it, and also report the fake news when they see one. And at the same time, when coming to officials, they have to be responsible by promoting and promoting the reliable and credible sources to the public, and letting them know like you don't have to look at all the information, and you have to look at something credible and follow that websites. And yeah, that's the end of my first project, and here are some references. I can just take a minute break, like if you want, or like if you want to ask some questions on this, or else I can just continue with the project too. So I have done my second project with Dr. Mustafa, and it's about working on the Health DX platform. So Health DX is nothing but an abbreviation for Global Health Data Exchange. So my work in this is write a white paper on the Health DX. For this, like this COVID-19 pandemic has made us realize how backward or how inefficient are we in the form of global health data exchange. Because if it has done effectively, we would have ended this in the place of pandemic itself. It would have not turned into a pandemic. And when talking about this exchange and interoperability, these are like very important because if they are done effectively, it helps in tackling the global health issues. And our personal belief of why this inter-health data exchange is very slow because of lack of proper knowledge-based system. So we need a knowledge-based system on this particular subject, so that people can just come and update the information from time to time. At the same time, the community just take the information from that and apply it and get the assistance of technical knowledge, so that they can implement this health data exchange. So my aim of this project is to emphasize the importance of global health data exchange with the establishment of Health DX platform. And for this, I have taken a systemic literature review approach to address all the whole process of creating this platform, and also addressing the key features in building this one. So Health DX, this is nothing but a multifaceted platform that brings all the stakeholders from different platforms, different fields, who are very passionate and wanted to use the technology in an innovatively way to improve the healthcare, and mostly focusing on the health data exchange. And we build this Health DX on three main layers. The first one is the clearinghouse, and the second one is community engagement, and third one is education or training. So when talking about this exchange, we are focusing on inter-organizational exchange rather than intra-organizational exchange. So inter-organizational exchange is nothing but transfer of data from one clinic to another, or from clinic to any NGOs, any organizations, any other healthcare sector, and also to any government officials or public health officials, like that. So this kind of exchange helps in decision making at maybe at the clinic level or organization or state or international level. So we are looking at this kind of exchange. And the first step is I have created a website for the Health DX, and we are going to use this website as a platform for partnering with potential organizations and hosting a global health conference in March 2021. And the next one, this is the main step of Health DX, which is the knowledge base. I think I'm just using this as a reference for clearinghouse. So first one, knowledge base is nothing but collection of the information about a particular topic. And everybody uses this term like interchangeably with the type of context it change. Maybe many of you are aware of the softwares, they develop the knowledge base about a particular resource. How can you use that particular product from A to Z? That's a one kind of knowledge base. And again, at the same time, most of the healthcare sector, they have a knowledge base which can be also called as a resource library, like a digital library. So we are looking at something like a digital resource library, but with some system intelligence. So far there are like 6 types of knowledge bases, like internal, hosted, self-hosted, customer, open source, and also external. So external knowledge base is something we are looking forward to. So external knowledge base is nothing but which is open to public, and it has no private information, and it has all the comprehensive information about a particular subject. So it's important to highlight the difference between the database and knowledge base. So database is nothing but like a collection of a raw data, but knowledge base is a collection of information on a particular subject. And database, it represents the basic form of data that's just like a raw data, it has nothing. But the knowledge base, it's like a fully developed, and this data can be reapplied and reused multiple times. And database, it helps in storage and retrieval of data, and knowledge base, it helps in rapid search, retrieval, and the same time reuse of this information. And the data which is in database is like static, it only helps in like a surface thinking, not any deep. But in the knowledge base, the data is dynamic, it can be abstracted, like it helps in deep thinking. So DIKW pyramid, like everybody are aware of this. So the center one is the DIKW, data, information, knowledge, wisdom. I just gave it a twist to help us understand how a knowledge base is linked to this DIKW cycle, sorry, pyramid. So at the level of data, it is represented in database, and which is managed by information management systems. And when it shifts to information and knowledge, it is stored in knowledge base, which is managed by knowledge base systems. And when the knowledge is shared among the public or the community, it is wisdom, and it's called knowledge sharing, which is managed by the knowledge management systems. So this knowledge management systems are nothing but clearinghouse. That's the layer one that we are creating. So there are certain characteristics to be a knowledge base, like the data should be comprehensive. It has to have all the information about the particular subject. It has to be easily accessible to the community or public, and it has to be intelligent. So the system has to be intelligent. The data should be dynamic, like the system has to link and reason within itself and make it intelligent each time. And next one, it has to search, easily searchable. The data cannot be hidden somewhere, it has to be easily accessible, and the data should be accurate. So the data cannot have like the medieval ages of information from past old days. It has to have like the up-to-date information, like the latest one. And this is the structure of the knowledge base that we are going to develop. You can see there is a box. This one is called as a K box, which is a knowledge box. And the user interface, you can interpret like a community or outside environment, something like that. And first one is the input. So we are the people who are putting all the information into the system, either in the form of white papers, blogs, research papers, etc. And once the new information enters into the system tries to like see if the new information is already there in the system, or it's like completely new. If the system, if the knowledge information is already there, it tries to dump it. And if it's not there, then it tries to categorize the information and tries to put like which place it can fit in. And later does the segmentation, feature extraction, and representation, and knowledge structure with the semantic net. And after that, it tries to integrate this new information with the already present information in the knowledge base. So that's how it tries to link the new and old information. And the next step is the query. So if somebody like me, I just wanted to go and get some information from the knowledge base, I just send a query to the system. It goes to the query applier. And here it's not like a database, it just go and take the data what I asked for. Instead, it tries to link. It tries to link the present query with the past query and tries to see what's happening, what's the link between the two queries, and then that's how starts the reasoning, and that's how the system becomes intelligent. And finally, this is the working model of Health DX. So this is the knowledge layer one, knowledge base slash clearinghouse, and layer two, social or community engagement. It has two roles in it, and finally the technical assistance. So the community will be inputting all the new information in the form of blogs, white papers, articles, etc. And new information is stored in the clearinghouse, and it gets feature extraction, structure, integration, reasoning, etc. And then the queries applied, and the community will be gathering the information, whatever it needs on the global health data exchange. At the same time, if they need any technical assistance to apply that to their particular organization, it will be also provided. So that's how the health DX is going to work. Thank you. And I'm hoping to take other questions.